What on earth is that? Yeah, welcome back to Ralph's house.
Welcome to Ralph's house!
Welcome back to Ralph's house. And this is going to be a very different Ralph's house. And if you watch the first couple of minutes of this and think, not really interested in this one, I won't be offended. You can skip by. But today I was at Richard's tool store, known as the Tool Man, on Bedworth Market. And a lot of what Richard gets, I think, is from the late husband of, when they're clearing out the garage or the shed. And I always find that rather sad, that some guys collected some stuff and then it all gets put in the bin. But that is life, isn't it? But I bought this box because I was kind of intrigued by that, which I would suggest is a radio set from either the 1920s or early part of the war. I think more like 1920s, to be honest, judging by the valves and the knobs on it. So I would say that is a radio set. There doesn't seem to be any, I haven't worked out, there's certainly no transformer in it, put it that way, and there's no speaker. So we'll set that aside for a minute, unless you recognise it and think, I know what that is. You probably don't, because there were a lot of these sort of things built. But this is the interesting one, and it's this. And sadly, it's damaged this side. This valve that's sticking out here would have stuck out the other side. And I'll tell you what it is. It is a Klystron, spelled with a K, CV35, and it's from World War II. And I'll tell you exactly what it does. It was an English-designed radar tube. And it was developed in 1939, this is originally, by R.H. and S.F. Varian at Stanford University in the States. And the basic design was improved upon by R. Sutton and his team at the Admiralty Signal School Extension, Bristol, towards the end of 1941, by the development of an operating reflex klystron, which this is, and it was subsequently tested in early 1941. It was often referred to as the Sutton tube, because of course it was developed by R. Sutton and his team. And its purpose was as an oscillator in radio receivers in World War II. In fact, the invention of the microwave radar was made partially possible by this development. Well, you wouldn't expect to find that in a box, would you? So, ex-naval, I would suggest. And for that reason, because a lot of it came together, I'm thinking a lot of it is related, particularly this one. My son looked at it and said, you don't see fonts like that. He said, except in the military or Second World War, and he's correct. So, feel free to look that one up. I have no idea. But presumably it gets hot, because that's one big heat sink. Right. There was a stand, miscellaneous. My son thought it was for a Bunsen burner, but I think it's too well made for that, especially with that cutout on the back. Then there's this. I'll tell you, like everything else here, it's very heavy. So it was made to last. It isn't a cheap thing. This is a Type 1 drill point measuring instrument. If you want to read the numbers and the pat numbers. No, British patent, Swiss, French and USA. Yeah, it does tie up very well with the Second World War, doesn't it? It may be after that, but it's well made. And these things lift up, and that's obviously greased. I presume you put your drill bits in there. It's not necessarily for sharpening them, but if you know what that is, let me know. That was one of the things. And also was this, which I think is probably connected with navigation and radar. So it seems to have a sealed end, that end, which is fixed on with screws. I am assuming that there's a bulb in there, because look, there are 2 terminals underneath and then a lens at the end. Go figure. I suppose you undo that end to change the bulb. I don't know. Either way, it's very well made. Made in Bakelite, I would think. Black Bakelite. So it's going to be robust, isn't it? And finally, it's this thing. What the hell is that? Again, I think it's something to do with radar navigation. It's possible that the man who owned all this stuff was, I don't know, maybe a radar specialist during the Second World War. He's since passed on, I would imagine, and that's why I've ended up with all this stuff. But as I was standing outside the... I'll just try and hold this so it doesn't move around so much. As I was standing outside the tool store, I was talking to another man who worked for Sterling Metals. I think they were based in... Were they based in Bedworth or based in Nuneaton? That area, anyway. But he used to make calibration equipment because there was various other things in the box. He said, oh, I know what that is. And I wouldn't have had a clue. Neither would Richard on his tool store. And really, I'd have been quite happy to talk to that man for quite a while, because he looked in the box and said, well, why have you bought all this stuff? And I said, because the expertise is lost. It's interesting, isn't it? And when they made this sort of stuff, they made it to last. You know, it's not like, I mean, that's unbelievably accurate. You just, just holding it in your hands, you just know it is. And, yeah, I could have talked to him for hours because... you know, all that information's lost, isn't it, when people pass on? It's rather sad. So, as for this radio, it's very, very unlikely, although, now, it does have a sort of diagram in there. There is no maker's name. My first thought that it was possibly a sort of self-assembly kit for somebody that was early into radio. But I don't think so now. I think this is ex-military as well. Maybe used on ships. Don't know. Not quite sure. But as I say, there's no maker's name. If I flip this over... I mean, where do you find variable capacitors? I mean, look, against my fingers. They're tiny, those ones, aren't they? Obviously for some kind of trimming. These huge coils. Does have valves in it. See that it's got the valve name on it, and there's another one in there underneath this thing. Yet another coil, another variable capacitor, and then we've got this humongous valve round here. I really ought to put it out, see what the value is on that. But I say there doesn't appear to be a power supply, so either it was through, because I've got one more thing to show you. It may be related, it may not. There appears to be no power supply to it. And you flip it over. Oh boy, are these old resistors. They are very old. These are these wax, paper and foil and wax coated capacitors that were pretty common. Replace those now would be a little component about that long. That's how things have changed. Let's flip it right up this way so we can have a look. Another variable, well, that is obviously adjustable on the board. Maybe to get your frequency bang on for calibration. It could well be. And then we come round to the front, which tells you nothing at all. In fact, I don't even know if this is the right way up. I'm assuming it's that way up. Makes more sense. Yeah. So, mystery things found in a box for Al's house. And like I say, if you have any idea what this equipment's used for, people who are into military stuff may well know. Leave a comment below because it's a mystery to me. And certainly if you're interested in any of these items, let me know. And finally is this. Again, a phenolic board. That's what they call this material, phenolic. Ammeter. Goes up to 5 amps. Out. And I guess that's in. I'm not sure you want 240 volt through those. It would seem a bit dangerous, wouldn't it, really, on the front. This is some kind of dropper, isn't it? Because that's a selenium rectifier. And an adjustable resistor, variable resistor. What do they call them? What's the name for them? Well, it's a big variable resistor. Yeah. And the ammeter. So presumably 240 in. I'm not sure you'd want 240 loose on those terminals though, but I don't know, maybe they had caps over them, I don't know. That's what you would call a very crude power supply. I'm not sure I'm going to wire that up and find out what it puts out. Chances are the selenium rectifier will pack up, but it's all cloth covered wire, and that's all that's written on it. I'm sure it wasn't 2 and 6. There you go. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Ralph's House. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.